Your chickens need different types of feed at different stages of life. The different types are starter feed, grower feed, and layer feed. Starter and grower feed is for chicks and is sold as crumbles, meaning they are small, easy to swallow pieces. Layer feed is for adult birds and can be either crumbles or pellets. Starter feed is formulated to be high in protein. It is recommended that you put your chicks on starter feed for the first 2 months. Once they reach 8 weeks of age, you should switch to grower feed. If you don't, the excess protein in starter feed could cause your birds to enter egg production too soon and could even lead to liver damage. The second type of feed, grower feed, has somewhat less protein than the starter formula, but more than the adult layer feed. It also has less calcium than layer feed. This is what you'll give your birds for the next 2 to 3 months. Note that many feed manufacturers produce a starter-grower formula, which combines the two types. The third kind of feed is layer feed. It's high in calcium, which your hens need to produce healthy eggs. You can start giving your girls layer feed at 18 to 20 weeks or when they lay their first egg, whichever comes first. Some people say starter feed is unnecessary and point to the fact that it can be hard to come by in some places. They say they've always used layer feed for their chicks and have never had a problem, noting that chicks being raised by a hen are going to follow her around and eat what she eats anyway. And yet, others will argue that you should never give your chicks layer feed, as the higher calcium content can stress their kidneys. My practice has been to use starter and grower feeds, transitioning to a layer feed when I see the first egg. It's an easy-to-follow schedule, and all of the various feed types are roughly the same price. For your first flock, I think this is the best route to go. I've provided you a handy chart that summarizes and simplifies these feed recommendations. Okay, let's talk about starter feed. On average, a chick will eat 1 pound, about 1/2 kilogram, of starter feed per week. Starter feed is finely ground and digests easily, meaning your chicks don't need grit in their diet. If you're not familiar with grit and why it's important, I explained this in the Adult Care module. Starter feed is nutritionally complete. It provides everything your chicks need. That said, some people like to give their little ones greens, table scraps, or treats, such as mealworms. Starter feed should remain their primary source of nutrition, however. Give the extra goodies in moderation, and when you do, also feed them grit to aid in digesting these new foods. Make sure you give them chick grit and not the adult poultry kind. Chick starter feed comes in 2 formulations, medicated and unmedicated. Which one you use depends on whether or not your chicks have been vaccinated for coccidiosis. This is a disease that I explain in detail in Chick Health. If your chicks have the coccidiosis vaccine, feed them non-medicated starter. If they do not have the vaccine, I recommend feeding them medicated starter. There are some things you should know about medicated starter feed. 1. It is for the prevention of coccidiosis only. It will not prevent other diseases. 2. Medicated starter feed is a preventative. It cannot be used to treat coccidiosis. 3. The active ingredient in most medicated feeds is amprolium. Amprolium is a drug, but it is not an antibiotic. It works by blocking a chick's absorption of thiamine, vitamin B1, which starves the coccidiosis protozoa. How long should you use medicated starter? That depends on whom you ask. A chicken expert may say 8 weeks is best, while some veteran flock owners will say 2 weeks is long enough. I used medicated feed until the bag ran out, which is about 4 weeks. After that, I switched to non-medicated. Some people have a foundational objection to medicated feed. They will not use it even when their chicks are unvaccinated. They believe that keeping your brooder clean is a sufficient deterrent, and they will instead treat disease on a case-by-case basis if and when it arises. I totally get that argument. I myself try to limit the use of medications in my life and that of my pets. However, I am okay with medicated starter feed, and for these reasons.
I'd rather prevent coccidiosis than treat it. And there is no withdrawal period. According to the FDA, it is safe to consume the eggs and meat from chickens that are on Amprolium. I think medicated starter feed is not just a good idea, but in some cases essential. For instance, when you're brooding a large number of chicks, say 20 or more, if you live in a hot, humid climate, or if you've had an outbreak of coccidiosis in the past. So, to sum all of this up, medicated starter feed is only needed if your chicks are not vaccinated for coccidiosis. And even then, not everyone does it. It's a personal choice.
Finally, I want to briefly mention organic feed. For feed to be organic, its ingredients must be certified organic. Organic certification is not easy to obtain, so bear in mind that organic feed will cost you twice as much or even more than regular feed. I've not used organic feed, but if you want to and it's within your budget, I think it's a great idea. That covers feed. Now let's talk about water. I don't have much to say here, aside from a tip on how to teach your chicks to drink. They will probably figure out how to eat on their own. Pecking is a natural behavior, but drinking is not as instinctive. If you don't see your chicks drinking, pick one who looks like a leader and dip its beak into the water. Once is usually enough for her to get the hang of it, and when the others see a brooder mate drinking, they'll most likely follow her lead. As always, once you've handled a chicken, you should wash your hands. You may want to infuse their water with extra nutrition, and I cover the various ways to do that in Chick Health.